Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Wednesday, April 1st version of Keystroke Live, No Foolin'. We will be talking about PCI and their data security standard and the application data security standard, and a little bit about EMV. I am by no means an expert in all of this, but I have collected and dealt with it over the past few years, so just going to kind of pass along a few of the highlights that I have seen here. We are also kicking off PinPad month at Keystroke Live, so next week we'll be talking about the end-to-end encrypted devices from MagTech and ID Tech, and then Mike Tabor will talk about the Ingenico devices, and we will end up the month talking with Cayenne about Genius, and then also how you set up Genius with Keystroke. And just remember, Keystroke Live every Wednesday, same login information. As I said, I'm not the de facto authority on PCI. There is the PCISecurityStandards.org website. It's difficult to sift through a lot of the information they have there, but they have the actual standard documents and things like that, so it's a good place. There's also EMV Co. is the organization that controls EMV. They describe the PCI, and remember, PCI DSS is what applies to merchants, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. There are a million acronyms in PCI, so I try to repeat what they are. And then we're PA-DSS, Payment Application Data Security Standard. But it's an ongoing process. It's not you do it once a year and forget about it. They like to say it, assess, remediate, report is the way they work it. Their goals are those basic 6 things. That's part of the digital dozen if you've ever heard it, but secure network, protect cardholder data, that's part of what Keystroke does, manage vulnerabilities, access control, test networks, and maintain a policy. And I kind of bring this out as there's a lot to it. And then with PCI DSS, there are a lot of new requirements in 3.0, and I kind of bring these up, just the requirements for a network diagram, evaluating malware threats, which we have to do in a pretty serious fashion as part of PA-DSS to look at it. Antivirus, you're supposed to secure it so that somebody on a workstation or register can't turn the antivirus off. That you have to be very careful with remote access. And then the couple things at the bottom that are new in 3.0, or the system restore has to be turned off. Somewhere they found a computer, and when they restored it, they got some cardholder data. So PCI says, hey, we've got to turn off system restore. And you need to update software. And the PCI document says critical security updates within 1 month, all other updates within 3 months. And that software includes operating system, antivirus, communication, point of sale, anything, payment processing, anything you're using. When there's an update, you need to implement that. PA-DSS, Payment Application Data Security Standards, that's what we're doing. We're finishing up our 3.0 validation. Unfortunately, we've been at it for about a year. We are in the testing phase, so we've got all the documentations, procedures. We've updated Keystroke. It's going to be part of what we're calling version 8 right now. So that will be released in the next few months here. That there's not a whole lot of look and feel change right now, but there is the additional coding practices we've done. We store passwords more securely now, so there's a lot of things we had to do in the background to be compliant with the PA-DSS 3.0 standard. Remember, the Cayenne Genius or the end-to-end encrypted solutions really secure the data, and it's what it's all about in the end, is having secure data and using those as your best bet to secure data. And that we looked at those 6 factors of the PCI DSS for merchants, and PA-DSS is one important part of it, but there are things like restricting access, and a new part of PCI DSS 3.0 is being able to revoke access to terminated employees or people that had access and shouldn't have it anymore, which I'm not sure how you do that. I guess that's take away their key. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about EMV. Again, there's acronyms everywhere. It stands for EuroPay, MasterCard, Visa. What EMV does, it does one thing, and that is prevents a merchant from taking a fraudulent card. So you read a lot about, oh, EMV is going to help a data breach. Well, it doesn't really do much to help a data breach. That's where end-to-end encryption helps a data breach, because if they get the data, there's nothing they can use. EMV prevents one thing, and that is the use of a counterfeit card. And why it does that is because it's very difficult to create a counterfeit EMV card. EMV cards can be contactless, or dual. So remember, EMV isn't the chip or the card, it's the protocol to authorize the transaction. The actual EMV card, it's got a chip in it. You see the little chip on the outside of the card. That really isn't the chip. That's just a little graphic that looks like a chip. And part of EMV is you insert the card into the EMV reader. The card needs to stay in the EMV reader throughout the duration of the transaction. So that will be kind of a change to how Americans and people in the U.S. do transactions, because they're used to swiping it and putting it away, and they're going to have to put it in there and wait until the transaction is over to remove it. So that, again, that's part of the deal. You never hand your card to the cashier. You always maintain possession of it. The chip itself is basically, it's a little computer chip. It runs apps, basically, and that's where a EMV card that is chip and PIN has a different app than an EMV card that is chip and signature. So the little app running on the chip determines whether or not you have to enter a PIN or have to enter a signature. As the industry stands right now, Visa is leaning towards chip and signature. MasterCard is leaning towards chip and PIN. There's no standard. What the fallout from that is, it makes it very difficult to train clerks and kind of create a flow, a transaction flow, because you don't know, will this person have to enter a PIN? Will they have to sign? Or you can also do it where you don't have to do either, which they say is going to be in a lot of kiosks and things like that. You hear a lot about the October 2015 liability shift. Again, this shift is only for counterfeit cards. This EMV takes care of that one thing, the use of counterfeit cards. So what the EMV liability shift in October is for is if a customer comes into a merchant store with a counterfeit card and you accept that transaction and it gets processed not using EMV hardware, the card issuer, acquirer, or processor is liable for that transaction rather than the card brand, Visa, MasterCard, Discover. That's the actual definition of the shift. Basically what it means is the acquirer or processor is going to hold the merchant liable because they're being held liable. They pass it down. So if you process with Mercury and they're using Global as the back end, Global is the processor, Mercury is the acquirer, Visa, MasterCard are the card brands. So the liability is shifting from Visa, which theoretically right now they're liable for that use of the counterfeit card, to the acquirer or the processor, who in turn will go to the merchant for that liability. But it is just for counterfeit cards. If card data gets stolen and breached, that's different. It really doesn't matter if you used EMV or a swipe. If you notice in there, issuer is too, because if, say, the Chase or Citibank hasn't issued EMV cards to everyone, you know, if somebody said, oh, I took that transaction because they didn't have a card with an EMV chip in it, then the issuer will be held liable rather than the acquirer and processor. The EMV liability shift is only for card present transactions. They are working on some ways of doing it online as well. And remember, you can do a EMV transaction by sticking the card in, but you can also do it contactless. So you can wave it, and the I believe the iPhone 6, the chip in it is EMV compatible or compliant, so you can do EMV transactions with Apple Pay. I don't know that all the back end and software is up for doing that yet, but the plan is that they will be able to do that. And I'm trying to make it clear, security is great. There's a lot of talk about EMV and security, and it's really doing, again, that one thing that prevents a merchant from taking a fraudulent card. So here are a few things that I've kind of learned over the years about PCI and PCI DSS, PA-DSS, and EMV. It is a complicated, confusing, and in my opinion, it was designed more for the Walmarts and Targets and Federated Department Store large chain solutions than for the individual mom and pop. You see a lot of statistics about EMV in Europe. There being, oh, I don't know, a couple of billion, 1.6 or 1.8 billion EMV cards in circulation right now. I think they say in Europe there's 80 or 90% acceptance rate for EMV, whereas in Canada they've been doing EMV for 8 years, and the small to medium-sized business, about 50% of them accept EMV. This is after 8 years. So you see the deadline, you see the liability shift. It is going to take time. Another big factor is a credit card that you receive right now costs about $0.25 to create. They say a EMV contact card will be $1 to $2. An EMV contactless card maybe twice that. So the card issuers are looking at a big expense to get a chip payment card in everybody's hands, and a lot of them don't want to issue them and then have to reissue them. Those cards are not remote updatable, so if something changes in the little app that runs on the chip, you basically have to throw the card away and get a new card. And remember, a card that's chip and pin and a card that's chip and signature, you can't look at it and tell the difference. It's in the app that determines whether it's chip and pin or chip and signature. So there's a lot of factors, a lot of players: card brands, card issuers, acquirers, processors, software vendors like us, VARs like you, merchants. They all have a stake in what's going on here, and so there's a lot to line up to make correct. I also want to note that the Cayenne Genius, they label it future-proof, but one good thing about the device they use, the MX915, the software running on it, the encryption, all of that is remote updatable. So if something changes with EMV or they need to update stuff, they can push that up to the Genius devices so that you don't have to take it off the terminal, send it in, and have it updated. We are hoping that Mercury, with their devices, will be able to do that too. I think that's part of the reason we don't have a solution with Mercury yet. They've told us, hey, hold off until we know exactly what's going to happen. The information we have right now tells us that probably the first device they're going to certify is the Verifone VX820, which is a kind of less expensive pin pad EMV device. It is also, it's not, or as they're using it right now, it's not end-to-end encrypted, which really is what secures you from a data breach, not just taking a fraudulent card transaction. And then they're indicating, my audio connection was lost, and then it says it was restored.
You're back.
I'm back. Great. Again, that Mercury is saying the first device they'll do is this VX820 from Verifone, which is not end-to-end encrypted, and they think the next device will be the Ingenico ISC 350 IPP 320 family of devices, and that will be remote updatable, but we don't know for sure. And they've also don't know how long this certification is going to take. EMV certification is a 3-step process, and the first 2 involve the device. The third step involves the device and the software. Everyone tells me it's very complicated, very expensive, which is why we aren't going to do it. The Cayenne, and with that Verifone MX915, they've done it, and then Mercury is going to do it with their software, their API. We ship a little piece of their software with ours that does the communication, so that will be certified with the device, so we don't have to do it. We're feeding it to their software. Their software is seeing the device, and so that takes us out of the loop and makes it much more reasonable for us to do. And every time I've explored doing that certification ourselves, it's just, you won't be able to do it. It's too expensive. It's too complicated and time consuming. So I believe Mercury doesn't have anything validated or certified with EMV yet, but that should be happening in the next month or 2. I've spewed out a lot of information in the last 20 minutes or so here, and there's a lot to it. Remember, there is that PCISecurityStandards.org website that has it. The other authorities they call them QSA, Qualified Security Assessors. So you can contract with a QSA to evaluate a merchant security and what's going on. On the PCI Security Standards website, they have the SAQ, Self-Assessment Questionnaire, that is what a merchant needs to step through to confirm that all of their security is in place. It's a long and complicated process. I've done it once in the past 2 years for us, and it really takes some work to get through it all. So those are other resources that you have to look at information. Remember, both Mercury and Cayenne Merchant Warehouse have good security folks. We had Mark Castricini come talk at the dealer summit last year, so you can contact them and have access to some expertise on all this security as well. So with that, thank you for attending. Are there any questions?
We've got a message there, Dave.
Yeah, about Keystroke and PC Charge, no idea. It's so hard to communicate with PC Charge. We've tried a couple times in the past month. I think PC Charge is going away. I know they have a cloud solution that's getting replaced, so I don't know what's going to happen there. And remember, there is also through Cayenne their payment gateway service, PGS, that you can use that to link to any processor as well. Any other questions? I don't know if I missed any other on chat. Like I say, I'm getting used to this new GoToMeeting format. Well, if there are no questions, we have Lynn talking about the MagTech and IDTech next week. Again, we'll kind of be going through the pin pads, and we've talked about installing them and setting them up. We're going to be talking more about security, good applications, what we like and don't like about the different devices over the next month here. So thank you very much for attending. Have a great day. No fooling. And we will see you, and Lynn will be in this seat next week.